The stages of grief don't just happen when someone dies. They also happen when a meaningful relationship ends. And did you know the divorce rate in the UK is currently 42%? So that's potentially a lot of grieving people, especially because whether you're married or not, all relationships that end have the potential to cause grief. Let's look at the top 5 reasons for divorce though. So, in the UK, unreasonable behaviour is the most common reason for divorce. It accounts for 45% of divorces, and this is possibly because different things can fall under this umbrella term. Separation of 2 years and consent accounts for 27% of divorces, adultery 14%, and separation of 5 years and consent 13%, and desertion is 1%. Also, according to research, women are more likely to leave a relationship than are men, and this is thought to be because of a greater sensitivity to relationship issues. So the end of a relationship is quite common, and as a psychologist who's worked with people who've suffered with grief after the loss of a relationship, I want to share how you can minimize the intensity and duration of grief when a relationship ends. So, what is grief? Grief is a natural response to loss, and in this case, the loss of a relationship. Loss like this is distressing and can be traumatic, and when it happens, the more well-known stages of grief can be experienced. These are things like intense feelings and thoughts about denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and hopefully acceptance. So what makes it so hard, and why do we suffer so much before we can come to acceptance? And that's even if we ever do. It's because we're losing someone who we feel attached to. And this is why we can experience grief even if the person hasn't died. And even though what I've described is mostly emotional in nature, grief also affects us cognitively, physically, and behaviorally. Indeed, it can affect how we view life and how we live it. So how might this look? Well, people can react in several ways. Some people are completely unaccepting of the end of a relationship, and they might beg the person to take them back. Or if they're blocked from accessing that person in some way, they may stalk them online or sometimes even in person. This is because they just cannot let go and find that the grief is just too overwhelming. Some people will feel intense sadness, anger, or confusion, and especially when they didn't see the end coming or thought that the other person felt more deeply for them than they actually did. Then there are those people who will completely disappear from the life of the person who's left them. They may block any possibility of contact and remove all signs of that person from their life. It may also surprise you to learn, though, that the person doing the leaving can experience grief as well. And as you can see, these are different ways to cope and manage one's feelings when aggrieved by the loss of a relationship. And they're all quite natural and normal responses to grief, because we all grieve in our own ways. So it's really important to know how might one cope when someone we love so dear is no longer with us. One thing that's incredibly important is self-care and compassion. Because when you're feeling sad about the end of a relationship, you're going to need care. This is why it's important to make sure you don't blame or punish yourself in ways. For example, you should ensure that you seek social support and talk to the people in your life that love and understand you. It's also important to maintain your daily routine, especially when you just want to bury yourself in the duvet. And of course, this may feel hard to do because of all the feelings swirling around inside you. So it's a good idea to set yourself small goals that are not as hard to achieve. Now, some people find mindfulness or journaling helpful too, and this is a good way to express how you're feeling, which is important to do. But if these steps seem too hard to do by yourself, therapy may benefit you. I've worked with many people who have suffered with grief in this way, and as hard as it may seem, you can get through it with the right support. Indeed, in therapy, and even if you're not having therapy, you can work on moving forward in your life. For example, after a breakup, it's a good time to focus on yourself. You may notice new opportunities in life that can help you grow through this challenge. It's always helpful to create goals for yourself. These offer a future focus and maybe even some optimism and hope along the way. You can also reorient yourself to yourself, and that is by focusing on your identity, on who you are without that person in your life, and how your life might even be better in some ways. Now, it's also important to be vigilant to the traps that can stop your growth and progress. For example, substances like alcohol. Now, whilst these may seem inviting because they can help one to avoid their feelings and offer the escape that you might so desperately crave, ultimately, it will make you feel worse and keep you trapped for longer. Another crucial thing to avoid are rebounds. All too often, I hear from clients who've lost someone to a breakup about their new dates. But sadly, they end up feeling even more hurt when things predictably fail with the new person. And why do they fail? Because they weren't ready. They haven't processed their loss and grief or learned what went wrong or about themselves in relationships, or what they want and need. They have instead reacted to their anxiety and loneliness and added a further knock to their self-esteem, because it simply cannot work when one is still carrying unprocessed grief. Now remember, if you found yourself doing something like this, or are using some other unhealthy coping strategy, you might benefit from therapy to help you out. So, in conclusion, remember, grief is a natural and healthy response to loss. And when this happens, there are things that we can do that can help carry us through the process in a healthier way. This can help us move toward healing just that bit easier. And another thing that might help if you're experiencing anything like this is one of our blogs. It's about how to get someone out of your head. So see what you can apply from that, or get in touch via our website. Thanks for watching. Do subscribe, like and comment, and share if you found this video helpful. Bye for now.